The summertime can be one of the most enjoyable times during the year between barbecues and activities, going outside and being with family and friends. But how do you not let your health, your fitness, and your strength go by the wayside during the busy summer months? On this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, it's exactly what we want to talk with you about. We're going to cue our introduction and then we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise that's geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And before we dive into this week's content, we do have an ask for you. If you've enjoyed any of the episodes that we've put out over the last, 5.5 years we've been putting this podcast out. If you've enjoyed a single one, if you could please pause this right now, go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It would not only help more people find our podcast, but it would allow us to show up higher in search results when we're trying to get super high quality guests on. And these ratings and reviews kind of vouch for us, saying, yeah, this podcast is really good. Yeah, this podcast is helpful. Yeah, this podcast is legitimate. So we love to bring on amazing guests, just like the ones we've been bringing on, but continue to bring on more amazing guests for you. So if you liked any of the content we put out, if you could please go to Apple Podcasts, leave us that 5-star rating and review, that would be amazing. Now, this week we are discussing this idea of, hey, you've worked hard in the gym through the fall, the winter, the spring, and summertime is here. You want to enjoy being with family, being with friends, being outside, not being in the gym. But how do you not let all the results that you've built up go by the wayside? This is a huge issue that a lot of people face. And so we want to give you 3 steps that you can follow today to help combat this and make sure your health, your strength, your function, your fitness all stay up there through the busy summer months.
Honestly, Charlie, I think summer's my favorite time for fitness. And I think it's mostly because the days are really long. And if you guys don't know, we are in the Midwest. And I'm saying this because I didn't know until I lived here, that there's a drastic change in the day length between summer and winter. I remember when I first moved here, I was teaching a group fitness class that started at 4:15 in the
afternoon.
It started with 4:15 in the afternoon, until 5 o'clock. It was a 45-minute class. And I remember the first fall, I was like, Charlie, the sun is setting while I'm teaching the class. And a month later, I was like, the sun is set before the class starts. I go to work in the middle of the afternoon at 4:15 and it is pitch black outside. So anyways, one thing that I love about summer is that you can be outside moving. I know so many people love to exercise when they can be outside, but for so much longer of the day. You can wake up at 5 and go outside and it's bright.
Yep.
And you can get home from work, eat your dinner, and go for a walk or a bike ride after all that at 8 o'clock, 8:30, and it's still bright, which is so amazing. So really take advantage of this opportunity. But also summer can pose a lot of disrupt in the schedule because kids might be home from school, or maybe your work is different, or you're doing more activities like what Charlie was saying, vacation. Yeah, vacation. So keeping on it is really important in terms of maintaining, the gains and the strength gains that you've made as you were a gym person over the winter maybe. But the big thing too is knowing that the consistency is what's potent for your health. So figuring out a way, even if it's a different way than what you've been doing, to stay consistent with your exercise is going to be really important for you to continue to get all the health benefits that exercise can provide for you.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who are very consistent going to the gym and exercising during the fall, the winter, the spring, and everything like that feel like the summer is kind of the time that they've been working for. And so they will slow down during the summer or, take the summer months completely off. I mean, I remember when I was working downtown in a box gym or a health club, and the summer, it was half, maybe a third of the people that were normally there during the winter. I'm not talking about there, January 1, or January 2nd. I'm talking about, consistently there, they're just nowhere to be found because, they're at the beach, they're traveling, they're doing all these things, which is great. You want to be able to build your strength, build your health, build your fitness so you can enjoy your life in the ways that you want to, enjoy it. The question is, how can you keep that that strength, that health, that fitness that you've built over, the non-summer months, but not have to burden yourself with going to a gym. Like, people want to be outside when the weather's nice. And so I totally get that. So we have 3 things that we want to talk with you about today. The first thing that we want to talk with you about, which we actually don't talk about all that much on this podcast.
You're right.
But is to prioritize your rest and recovery. See, the summer months between travel, different schedule, like you're saying, going on vacation, and just, events, gatherings, barbecues, everything like that, eating different foods, different celebrations. It's like there's a lot going on. I mean, I don't know that I've ever had a conversation with somebody who's like, oh yeah, the summer's going really slow. It's like the summer's always flying by. The summer's always going so fast because there's always so much going on. And that's great. But where that can leave a lot of people is feeling really tired, feeling overwhelmed, feeling not like emotionally overwhelmed, but like physically overwhelmed, feeling like exhausted, like, oh, I just need a break. And so that can really take a toll on your health, on your strength, on your fitness. And so one thing is to, throughout your week, really build in times where you're going to prioritize your rest. You're going to prioritize your recovery and just prioritize just having some downtime, even if it's not doing all the normal summer activities that you normally do, but just so you can get a little bit of a recharge. So then you can feel like, okay, yeah, now I can bounce back. I can feel like my healthy, strong, fit self again.
You're right, Charlie. I think, you know how they have this saying, like, work hard, play hard, right? And it's always like seems fun because like you're living a big life, right? But it's like you can work out hard when you've rested hard. And I can't tell you the amount of time. This is like this should be a personal message, like, to Julie. Don't forget to rest, because I think I'm the worst rester. Like, I think that I work out regularly, but I always feel like doing more is always better. And I can't tell you the amount of times that I actually will get good rest, and the following day I go to exercise and I'm like, wow, it was amazing to like push myself during my run today. Like, I felt amazing to be able to do that without my body saying like, no, you only slept 4 hours. You need to relax. You have been eating poorly or whatever. So yeah, thinking about resting and recovering so that you can actually participate in your workouts. I think sometimes when we're having fun, we have all the barbecues, we're out on the boat, we're in the sun, we're eating differently, we're having some booze, all the things. Those are physical taxers, stressors to our body. And so is exercise, except for the outcome goal is a little different. One is maybe just thinking about fun, and one is actually, hey, I'm putting a little bit of stress on my body to gain a health response. But you do have to have that physical, I almost want to say like a margin, right? A physical margin, which you have to be intentional about putting in. And I think a lot of times in the summer months or during holiday seasons in general, and it seems like summer is like a 2 months of holiday seasoning.
No, that's just what I was thinking. It's just, it's like an extended holiday season.
It is an extended holiday season. So remembering just to get that rest, maybe take an afternoon inside rather than out in the sun. Take an afternoon with just water and no alcohol. Take an afternoon to, relax. So that you can have the times where you're building in that health. Because otherwise, you're just going to feel like you're just playing hard and then recovering just from that playing hard to play hard again.
Absolutely. And you can also still blend it with the summer activities that you normally do. So like if you're going to be outside, instead of, like playing in the pool, you can just, chill out by the pool. You can sit in the shade by the pool instead of, and so there are different ways that you can still like enjoy the summertime activity, but just, allow yourself a little bit more recovery. Another simple thing is if you just look at like 1 or 2 nights a week, not necessarily on the weekends, but maybe on the weekends, but like just during the week, just 1 or 2 nights being like, okay, cool. Like this is going to be the limit of how late I stay up. I'm going to, and it doesn't have to be like the same nights every single week, but it's just like 1 or 2 nights a week, that you can get to sleep at like a really decent hour for you. That's different for everybody. But I know, like, for example, like last night I was asleep by 9 o'clock and that was just like such a recharge to be able to be asleep by 9 o'clock. And if you just get like 1 or 2 nights of those a week, oh my gosh, it makes a world of difference.
Right. Even like you were saying in the day yesterday, you said, okay, no shows tonight for me because I just need a recharge. And sometimes making that decision when you're feeling like in the decision-making mode is really helpful because had you gotten home at night and then you were like, oh, I haven't hugged Julie all day, and yay, okay, oh, well, maybe we'll snuggle on the couch, and oh, okay, let's watch a show. And then now it's 45 minutes later, an hour later of all this light coming into your eyes, and you're staying. So sometimes making that plan to have that recharge time is really important, especially if you are a doer and you struggle to do the recharge. So find that time to recharge, because it'll really benefit your health in terms of, yes, you're getting the rest you need, but also you'll be able to push harder in your workouts when you do go to exercise.
Absolutely. Now, the second tip that we want to give you is to take advantage of the summer weather. Get outside on a regular basis. I mean, just being outside in nature can be such a recharge in and of itself. You don't have to be going for like a really hard run. You can just go for a walk or just spend some time, gardening or doing some light yard work or whatever. But just like being outside, and it doesn't have to be for, 5 to 6 hours at a time either. You can get out for 20 minutes in the morning, as the sun's coming up, or the sun is, a little bit lower in the sky. And that in of itself can be like, okay, yeah, like this is setting me up to have a great day. Same thing in the evening as the sun's going down. Just get out, for 20 minutes of just, again, either just sitting outside or just some light activity. Or if you are up for it and you want to make sure that, you are getting your outside runs and you're doing, your longer bike rides, you're taking advantage of golf weather and, getting outside and, walking 18 holes, playing golf, everything that you want to do, from a physical activity standpoint, find some times to make sure that you are like intentional about getting outside every day.
That's right. And Charlie, I remember that I moved here, 10 years ago?
Yes.
Was it like 10 years ago? Okay. So I moved here 10 years ago, and it was like a year into
almost exactly to the day that we're recording this.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Anyways, happy 10 years to me being in the Chicagoland area. Anyways, so I was probably, a year out of college at that point. So kind of like my first adulting experience happened here, which was a very different environment than where I had ever been. Because most of my adult teenage years, the upper teenage years, I was in Florida. So it's hot all the time, summer all the time. You can be outside every day. I was outside every day. It's warm all the time, and it's bright all the time. You don't have the times when it's dark all the time here. It's dark all the, I don't know if I already said this, people, but it's dark here a lot. Moving on. But getting outside is something that everyone feels it. It primes your brain to do better stuff. And I know that's the most basic way to say it. And you might listen to other professionals it's all about connecting with nature, getting the vitamin D or the fresh air. But something about being outside, I don't know, I think it helps everyone. Your brain does not become less clear because you've gone outside.
Right.
You don't make poorer decisions because you've gone outside. You actually get the reverse when you're outside, when you're in the fresh air. So who knows why? We can say it's a whole bunch of different things. You're connecting with nature. Your hands are in the dirt. You're getting vitamin D. You're getting fresh air. Whatever it is, you're moving your body. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that when you do get outside, somehow people start making better decisions, especially if, the weather's nice, which in this area it is, which is amazing. And I was thinking about this because I listen to a lot of other fitness people, and they're like, something about when you exercise, your brain makes better decisions. And I think you even wrote about that in your book. When you exercise, your brain makes better decisions. And I've always thought that's funny because also I'm hungrier. So my brain is telling me you must eat. And I always thought, man, but if I'm trying to eat less, I guess my body doesn't really want me to eat less if I'm exercising. Anyways, but it's you're priming your body to do healthy things, and getting outside is one of those things.
Absolutely. Now, the third tip that we have is to still make sure you are getting your resistance training in a minimum of 3 times a week, but doing it at home. You don't have to go to a gym to do your resistance training. You don't have to go to a gym to, challenge your muscles. Now, a lot of people would see in years past is, again, they'd be consistent with their strength training, in the fall, the winter, the spring, and then summertime was hey, I do not want to be in the gym. So they would go June, July, and August essentially without doing any kind of significant strength training. And then they would come back in September, and they spent their time outside and everything like that. They did all the activities that they wanted to do, but their strength was noticeably less. Now, for some people, that's not a big deal. They'd be like, okay, cool. I'm young enough. I'm still relatively strong enough. I'm fit enough, whatever. I can bounce back. It'll build back. Sure. I did what I wanted to do over the last 3 months. But for a lot of people, that ends up being a much bigger issue. When you take 3 months off of not doing any kind of strength training, when you had been consistently strength training, like you see drops in your strength that are very noticeable. And not just from like a weight room perspective noticeable, but like what you're actually able to do throughout your life. So kind of reframing your strength training as not necessarily a performance-based thing, but rather it is the thing that allows you to do all the other summertime activities that you want to do. Making sure that you are continuing to do your strength training, whether it's at the gym, but we're talking about how to not go to a gym, so doing it at home, that's going to be a really key aspect of making sure not only are you able to have as enjoyable of a summer day as you want, but you're able to get, through Labor Day and still feel strong and fit and healthy in all the ways that you want to feel.
Charlie, so last week you called me out for making up words.
Yes, that's true. I did.
And I didn't know that like I was making up that word that I used because it just, it's about the communication. But now making up a word that is not a new word, but it is a Julie made up word.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say I made up a word. I'm like, I'm pretty sure, but I might have.
I don't think you make up words. Okay. But we're talking about resistance training at home and the why, right? And so the big thing that comes to my brain when I'm thinking about this is this idea of bufferage.
Okay.
That is a made up word, right?
I can get behind that.
It's like, how much buffer do you have? So it's like, what's your bufferage? Okay, so think about this. If you've been working out since you were 20 years old and you've been working out regularly, maybe you've taken some breaks, but it's not like 6-year breaks, 10-year breaks. It's like, you've just been kind of consistent with it. And now you are 60s, 65, maybe your 50s, whatever. It's been a lot of years. You have a lot of bufferage built up of probably bone density, muscle strength, joint function, all the responses. Like your body is actually living in an environment that says we exercise regularly. So keep the stuff we need for regular exercise. Like whatever response your body is having metabolism wise, muscle wise, bone wise, all that stuff, right? Most people don't start exercising and doing healthy stuff in their 20s because their health is not an issue. They're not viewing their health. So if you were like, yeah, Julie, that is definitely not me. I started exercising when I was in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. You're starting later in life. That's fine. But I do want to say that because you're starting later in life, you do have a little bit less bufferage or a bit less bufferage, depending on how aggressively you've attacked this thing, which is totally not an issue. The issue is that if you never started, right? You're starting, that's perfect. But you do have less bufferage, right? And so as soon as anyone with a lot of bufferage or anyone with a little bit of bufferage takes their body out of an exercise environment and says, yep, for the next 6 weeks, the next 4 weeks, next 3 weeks, next 2 years, we're not exercising. Your body's now going to adapt and change in the opposite direction of being a body that exercises. If you have a lot of bufferage, you have a lot of space. So you could take more time off. Those people probably don't take time off as much because they really like the effects of feeling when they exercise. And if you have less bufferage, you have less room before you're back to, I don't want to say square zero, but before you start noticing significant losses that are going to affect your life. So here's some examples. I have a handful of clients. I train a lot of women, 50 and over. A lot of them have osteopenia, osteoporosis. They struggle with their metabolism. They feel like their joint range of motion isn't where it should be. And they have a lot more fat mass relative to muscle mass. And remember, the only way you're going to build muscle mass is to tell your body, put your body in an exercise environment and tell it to build muscle. So we're traveling in the right direction. When people take breaks, especially again, if you're starting later in life, you have less bufferage before your body is slipping far enough for you to notice the negative consequences of like, oh shoot, I don't feel as flexible and mobile when I wake up. Building muscle and strength helps with flexibility and mobility. Oh shoot, I can't go on my vacation and feel like I have that stamina and endurance to keep up with the tour as much. Or I'm throwing out my back every other week again. So these things that start slipping, and for some people, it's quick. You take a week off and you start noticing right away. If you're Charlie, you take 2 days off and you start noticing right away. If you're like me, it depends on who you are and where you are in your journey. No matter what, if you take a break from that resistance training, you start to slip downwards because we're always just telling our body what environment we're putting it in, and it adapts. And if you have less bufferage, if you're less far away from baseline, then you start feeling those negative consequences sooner. And we want to help you by sharing this so that you're trying to stay as far away from, feeling like you're a risk for falling, or feeling like you're losing so much muscle mass that now you are struggling to keep up on vacation or pick up your grandkids and things like that, because we want to keep you living the lifestyle that you want to live, which requires healthy functional muscles. And the best way to keep healthy functional muscles is to regularly resistance train. And I don't think that people realize how quickly you lose your strength, function, mobility, flexibility gains from resistance training when you stop resistance training. Because most people aren't like, oh, I go 5 days, now I go 3 days. It's like, oh, I went 3 days and now I'm taking a month break. And it goes to cold turkey. So just keep that in mind. We want to keep you as far away from like your baseline or a low line as possible so that you can keep all those life things that we're wanting to do with muscle.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really big point that you brought up, and I'm glad that you went through it, because as you're talking about it, I'm thinking it's almost like a health investment account in a way, right? Like the longer you've been investing and the more you've been investing, when you want to start dipping into that, you're not going to feel the effects of that as much as if you are, just recently starting to, put money away, or, putting it away in smaller increments. And then it's going to be like, oh yeah, okay, like I'm noticing that my balance is getting closer to zero or whatever. So it's same kind of idea, but yeah, spelling it out like that, that's big. Okay, so again, let's recap these kind of 3 ways to stay strong through the summer without having to go to the gym. Number 1 is to prioritize your rest and recovery. Look, the summer is filled with activities, and you should be able to participate in all those activities. We want you to participate in all those activities, but we also know that participating in all the activities can be very taxing. So prioritize your rest and recovery throughout your week, even if it's not like abstaining from the activities completely, but just, like hanging out by the pool instead of playing in the pool or something like that. Just having those little bits of recharge time, finding a night or two throughout the week where you can just go to bed at a super decent time for yourself. That can make all the difference, especially as the summer months go on. Number 2, make sure that you are getting outside every single day, doing the things that you want to do, whether it's going for a bike ride or run, or just, doing work around your yard or in your garden, or just going for those light kind of like 20-minute walks or something like that. And number 3, make sure that you're prioritizing your resistance training at least 3 times a week from your home. You do not need to go to a gym in order to feel healthy and strong. You do not need to go to a gym in order to build your strength and fitness. You can get the results that you're wanting to get and maintain the results that you have by effectively strength training right from your home. And I mean, all the other podcasts that we do talk about how to go about doing that. But we would just want to remind you, like, that is a key component to continuing to be able to do all the other stuff that you want to do during the summer months.
That's right. And if you are needing help to exercise from home, we would love for you to become an Exercise for Life member. In our membership, we have so many programs. And actually, one thing I love about our membership, which we barely talk about, is that every workout is in a program, because it's not just one-off programs. We're going to train you over time. So every program is 8 workouts. They're always 10 to 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but nothing over. And all the equipment that we use is just things from your home. And we give you so many options so you know how to make sure that it's going to fit and feel good for your body. Because that's one of our biggest objections. Like, I know you guys talk about resistance training, but every time I've tried it, it hurts or something's wrong. So that's our big thing. So go to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com/membership and check out our membership options. And we can't wait to work out with you in your home.
So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that has been working really hard on their health, on their fitness, on their strength through the fall and winter and spring, and during the summer they want to make sure that they don't lose it, but they're also not interested in taking an hour or 3 hours multiple times a week to go to a gym and work out? Share this episode with them so they can learn 3 ways that they can maintain their strength and their health and their fitness through the summer months without having to go to a gym. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.